You are watching Channel ZMTV News. Up next is Dr. Edgar West Poe's Midnight Video Nasties, followed by your late news update at 2 a.m. Stay tuned, if you dare.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of the Midnight Video Nasties. As always, I am your host, Dr. Edgar West Poe, and tonight is a very special night. Tonight is the one night a year where ghosts and goblins and other creatures that go bump in the night intertwine with the lives of the living. Yes, tonight is Halloween. So to celebrate this very special night, I've decided we're gonna watch a very special movie. One full of strange acting, oddly good comedic timing, and the worst ghost name since the Bye Bye Man. Yes, this is the 1986 Disney short film classic, Mr. Boogedy. Mr. Carlton Davis, a gag shop owner, decides to move into the town of Lucifer Falls with his 3 kids, Reginald Ernest, Ari, and Jennifer, and his wife, Eloise. Once they move in, however, they are met with strange noises, children coughing, the same stock werewolf sound effect at least 2 times, and the titular character himself, Mr. Boogedy. So watch with me, if you dare. So unfortunately for this review, there are not going to be that many video clips that I can link directly to the movie to show you what's happening, due to A, the only way I was able to watch this movie was on Disney+, and B, because I'm not going to spend $30 or more on a DVD of this piece of shit. Mr. Boogedy opens to a family of 5 playing in a field for some reason, and the dad is this like gag joke shop owner. We find out that they're moving into a new town called Lucifer Falls. Remember that it's called Lucifer Falls. That will become important later. So they go in, they walk in the place, there's spider webs, and then there's just a dude in their living room. The daughter is like, "Mom, look, it's this guy," and she's pointing. And the mom so candidly just goes, "Don't point, dear." And I don't know why, but that made me laugh so freaking hard. They meet the man who sold them the house, Neil Witherspoon. And Neil comes in, and he tells the story of how this house is haunted by a man named Mr. Boogedy. And he does this by screaming, "Boogedy, boogedy, boo." The entire time that he's talking to them, he's like telling them, "You need to get out. Get out of this house. You're gonna die." But he's also like the guy in charge of real estate in Lucifer Falls, so he sold them the house. Because later on, we go into like the real estate office, and there's no one else in that office. It's just him. But you sold them the house. Why are you telling them to get out when you sold them the house? And then the dad is just like, "Oh, silly Neil." The kids start exploring the house. Daughter goes up the stairs because she hears coughing. Like one of those fake coughs you would give your parents when you're trying to get out of school. And she sees this blue outline light in the doorway, and she finds nothing. The 2 boys go downstairs, and then their dad comes down the stairs, and this is really weird. So the dad, the way that it's shot, is the dad from like torso up is in complete blackness. Like you can't see his face, you can't see anything. You see like an outline, but that's it. Bottom down, it's lit up normally like a normal movie. But from torso up, he looks like the dad from Onward. Like, he's just gone. And the way that he talks to the boys is really sinister. "Now, kids, it's time to go to bed. You know what your mother will say." While I'm watching this, I'm like, is the dad Mr. Boogedy? Because the dad, like, plays pranks on this family throughout the movie. And so I was like, oh, okay, he's like a jokester, you know, ooh, jokey dad, he's gonna be Mr. Boogedy. But he isn't. Spoiler alert, he's not Mr. Boogedy. The dad has nothing to do with Mr. Boogedy. He doesn't know Mr. Boogedy. He doesn't even think he's real, and he's not lying when he says it. He didn't think he was real until he saw him. He has nothing to do with Mr. Boogedy. But this shot is shot so evil and sinister. Like, he looks like a superhero villain that, like, you're waiting for them to step out of the shadows so you see who it is. That's what it's shot like. So the kids' names, alright, I'm gonna get into these stupid kids' names. Okay, so the first one is Reginald Ernest Davis, which is the most, like, Reagan-era sounding name I think I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, Reginald Ernest Davis sounds like he'd be a Wall Street broker in 2020. And their other kid is Ari, but it's spelled Ahri. Who the hell spells Ari like that? Stop spelling your kids' names weird to make them unique, like Dennis with one N. Like, no, stop it. They walk into this place, to the room where Mr. Boogedy was, and there's, like, green, slimy footprints going all up the wall. And the dad then decides, hey, I'm gonna put these slimy footprints all over my body, because I can sell these at the gag store. Like, there's only, like, 10 pairs of them, so you're only gonna sell, like, 10 of them. What if they're a good seller? Then you're just out of foots. The kids want to find out who is Mr. Boogedy. So they go to Neil, the real estate guy. And Neil is just creepy. Like, he's just a creepy dude. Like, I don't trust these kids being alone with this guy. And so they ask him, hey, who is Mr. Boogedy? Obviously you know the story of Mr. Boogedy. The story goes into a flashback. And the flashback takes place in Pilgrim times. Neil says the town was founded as Lucifer Falls. I refuse to believe any Puritan ever would even come close to naming anything Lucifer. Puritans. The same people who would throw a woman on a burning pyre because she was trying to defend herself that she wasn't a witch would name a town Lucifer Falls. And all of these actors, it looks like a high school play of, like, Thanksgiving, you know, like just generic pilgrim outfits. It's on a white background. All the cutouts of, like, the houses are all paper cutouts. It's so bizarre. And Mr. Boogedy is just, like, this angry pilgrim who just screams at the kids, boogedy, boogedy, boo. And I'm like, okay, so Mr. Boogedy's just what, like an angry old man? So he wants this bride. And it's this widow Marion, and she is the one person in town who's like, maybe he's really not just the bad guy. Maybe he's just, like, misunderstood or something. And she has a son named Joseph. So what does Mr. Boogedy do? Does he take Marion on a date? Maybe go to the local witch burning? No, he straight up sells his soul to Satan for a magic cloak. He kidnaps the child of the widow and demands that the widow marry him, or else she will never see her child again. So she comes to the house with Mr. Boogedy, and Mr. Boogedy blows up his house. So to refresh that, angry pilgrim man makes a deal to Satan, steals a widow's child, and kills the three of them by blowing up his house. That's who Mr. Boogedy is. An angry pilgrim who blew up his house and killed a widow and his wife and her son. I don't understand. The dad finally sees, like, the house is haunted. And so everyone in the house is like, we need to get out of the house. We need to go. We need to leave. We're getting out of here. And the dad is so adamant about, like, no, we can't leave. We have to stay here. And I'm like, are you Mr. Boogedy? Why don't you want to get them out of the house? Are you Mr. Boogedy? So the dad's like, okay, hey, instead of, you know what? We'll camp out. They just camp out in the living room. Like, that's it. They don't go out of the house. They're still in the house. The mom wakes up in the middle of the night, and she goes to the kitchen and pulls this plate out of the fridge. And this plate is like a whole charcuterie board. Like, there's like 6 different types of cheeses, multiple kinds of meats and sausages. And she starts eating this piece of cheese, and she hears the cries of Marion outside. And so she goes and she like breaks the cheese in half, like it's a slice, like Kraft, and then just walks out to see where the crying's coming from, because it's Marion, you know, the ghost lady. And she's like, "Oh, well, hello. Would you like to come in?" And Marion starts like crying. And she's like, we have coffee. Do you want coffee? And then Marion's crying even more. And then the mom is, this is actually kind of funny. The mom is like, is coffee a bad word for you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I offended you with coffee. Like, I don't know what, but the acting is so bizarre that I don't know what to think of it. I really don't. And so Marion tells the mom, "Oh, you know, my son's missing, blah." And so the mom comes back in. She explains the story. They go upstairs, and they call down Mr. Boogedy to come back downstairs. So they're gonna fight Mr. Boogedy in the living room. And the dad goes, "Look here, Boogedy. Why did I subject myself to this?" So they all start to fight Mr. Boogedy. The little brother gets a vacuum, but the vacuum like blows instead of sucks. And Mr. Boogedy does this like electric thing where it looks like he's the 4th Sanderson sister. I'm not even joking. And all of the parents have like, you know, the wacky, you know, oh, the hair's sticking up straight, like, you know, the Bride of Frankenstein, electricity going through it, meh. The son gets the vacuum cleaner and sucks in the cloak of Mr. Boogedy, and then the dad is like, "Oh, I guess the day is saved." And then, you know, the gag vacuum cleaner pops up. The little clown is like, "Or is it?" You know, Mr. Boogedy's still alive inside of a gag puppet. That was Mr. Boogedy. It's a movie. It's a movie that exists. And you should watch this. Bring some friends over, get some drinks, and enjoy Mr. Boogedy. Because the way you shouldn't watch this film is by yourself in your small apartment so you can review it for a YouTube video. Don't do that.